Everybody, James Williams here for the Believe in UCLA Football Podcast, and I have a special guest with me today. ESPN's Marty Smith joins the show today. Marty, how you doing, man?
I am awesome, James. How you doing, my man? Appreciate you having me today.
No worries. Thank you for stopping by. I'm doing well. I mean, hey, we're in the middle of college football season. Every other part of the year, we're
Are
sitting
we
here like,
ever?
man, when is it going to be college football season? So now that we're in college football season, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. Obviously, Uh, it's still a pretty decent matchup, I think, all things considered. Especially on the UCLA side, because UCLA did
Yeah,
get the
that
win over.
Indiana game was a little dicey there, Bubba.
Oh, it was a little more than it was a little
a
it was a little
little
more
bit
than
dicey,
dicey.
man.
I mean, they got sliced and diced, but hey, it happens. I mean, hey, we can start there. I mean, we'll talk a little LSU and a little SEC here in a minute, but I mean, what do you make of that? What do you just make of college realignment? And you have teams like USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington joining the Big Ten, and that's the first Big Ten game on the schedule between you get two Big Ten teams for the year, and not a good showing for UCLA.
Well, Indiana looked like the dang Patriot. I mean, like
Yeah.
they look like they look nine the quarterback. I was watching tape on it a little bit
Hmm.
earlier, and that I mean, he was dialed.
Yeah.
And so credit to them, but to go on the road like that and to put together that kind of performance and really be dominant was quite a showing for Indiana and has to be incredibly frustrating for Coach Foster and
Hmm.
his staff to come out flat like that in your first ride in the conference. But he's trying to build something. Coach Kelly took off and went to Columbus, and so he's in there trying to build something and put a culture in that is very authentic to him. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're doing it on the fly like this, when you're doing it real time. And so hopefully the folks out there in Westwood have a little patience. I was in Gainesville last week, James. I think the Gators are out of patience, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. It's a very hard league, and I thought Indiana looked really good. And I will tell you, as they progress through it, the Big Ten doesn't get any easier, man. And
No.
so it's going to be drinking out of a fire hose a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so that was the thing. A lot of the UCLA fans looked at the schedule and like, okay, tough schedule. They're traveling pretty much the circumference of the earth or whatever the case may be. And
Seriously.
yeah, and you look at the Hawaii game, you look at the Indiana game, you're like, oh, those should be winnable games. And then of course we have the tough stretch there with the Penn State, the Oregon, and then LSU obviously coming up here. And you're like,
It's going to
maybe
be
we'll struggle a little bit there, but I mean, Indiana came out with their hair on fire, and it shouldn't be a surprise. They scored 77 points the week before, so I mean, that's football for you. It's unpredictable, but I'm glad you mentioned the thing about patience there because the fans are getting a little restless, and I think they were pretty restless during the Chip Kelly era and just some of the stuff that happened there, and they were ready to turn the page. The thing I keep trying to preach to them is it's you got to have patience. Deshaun Foster said this is year one. He's trying to win. They're trying to win, and I'm just kind of saying like, hey, this is a year zero. I mean, just on the fact that he got hired way later in the coaching cycle than
That's what I'm
than you would
saying. I
ever
mean,
want.
he's basically instituting his culture,
Yeah.
his scheme,
Hmm.
his influence on the fly here. And it's hard enough to do it when you're an established coach like Mike Norvell. Let's just look at him. We all came into 2024 expecting Florida State to contend for the ACC championship and a college football playoff berth and really follow up on what was a landmark season in 2023. And here they are 0-3 and don't look competitive. And
Hmm.
it just reminds you, it reminds all of us how good Jordan Travis is
Yeah.
and Keon Coleman and those dudes they had and those guys they had on the defensive side last year too. Bad boys on the defensive front last year who are gone in the NFL now. And
Hit with a
so
ram.
it's a really hard job. And when you're playing in the SEC and the Big Ten, it's even harder. And so, because the parity is crazy, the talent is crazy, the depth. And so, I'm praying for all y'all out there, bro.
Hey, it's just one day at a time over
That's
here.
it. That's it.
But UCLA obviously, they had some success. They did beat LSU when LSU came to Westwood. I think that was
2021, right? I
2020,
think.
2020. Yeah, 2021. It was right
Yep.
after the pandemic.
Yep.
They come back. That was a sissy blue shirt game, Coach O, talking about the sissy blue shirts for UCLA.
I love
Um,
them. I love them shirts. Like
yeah.
that is a clean look too. And now that they're a Jordan school, right?
hmm
See, that just changes everything for me.
Yep.
I mean, when you got the jump man on your gear, it's like
hmm
it's the coolest thing ever. So
It helps the brand, that's for sure.
no doubt it
Um,
does.
Tell me a little bit about LSU. You're probably more familiar with LSU than a lot of most teams around the country. Obviously, being an SEC guy, but tell me a little bit about LSU, kind of their ups and downs this season. I know Brian Kelly was banging the table at one point. I think was that after the USC game there. That was a close game.
Yep.
Tell me just a little bit about LSU and what UCLA is getting into when they go into the stadium there
Yep.
in New Orleans.
Well, I will tell you, yeah, in Baton Rouge, the
Baton Rouge, excuse me.
anybody from LA that is going to Baton Rouge and has never gone to a game in Death Valley. Now, kickoff is in the 3 o'clock hour,
Mhm.
but I can tell you it is an experience unlike anywhere else in college football. It is beautifully authentic to their culture in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge. They are amazing fans. And when you're in that place and there's 102,000 people losing their minds, there's nothing like now. Again, it's not Death Valley on Saturday night because we ain't playing at night,
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful experience in a wonderful college football town. And so that you're really going to enjoy it. Now, Coach Kelly has done a tremendous job at LSU. Of course, won the SEC West in his first year there, beating Bama at the last second. I'm actually doing a feature for this weekend on Mason Taylor, the tight end that they have. His father, Jason, I'm sure James,
hmm
as you know, is a
Yep.
Pro Football Hall of Famer from the Miami Dolphins, and um, a great player, just a great player. I think he was the Mackey tight end of the week this week, anyway,
Oh
as
yeah.
well. So Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback who is a phenomenal talent. He can just rip it and has great command of that offense. He watched Jaden Daniels for a couple of years, learned from him, and now it's his team. They had they escaped Columbia, South
Yeah.
Carolina last Saturday, and
hmm
it depends on who you ask, but they should have lost that football game. And they emerge as victors, which is huge for them going into this weekend at home. And so defensively, they got a lot of talent. They're still sort of working through scheme a little bit. Blake Baker
hmm
comes over as defensive coordinator his first year as DC in Baton Rouge. He was great at Missouri. They had a great defense last year under him. And so LSU's got dudes. They always have talent every single year. And they're in sort of the process right now of honing that talent as units. And I'm not a picker, thank goodness. I don't get
yeah.
paid to pick games,
Right.
but I'm leaning heavy Tigers on this one, brother.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. Real quick, I have another question or two for you, but I do want to talk to you about you being an ambassador for Game Change. Can you tell me a little bit
Yes.
about that?
So it's interesting, James, because we're in this era of college athletics that is transformational and in so many ways transactional.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out in every athletic department, how can we raise more money? I don't care if you're Texas and Ohio State, Texas A&M, Michigan, these massive brands that have all of this funding. They're still trying to figure out how to raise more money. And then I went to Radford University in Virginia, little D1 school, been to the
Mhm.
NCAA tournament a few times, no football, only men's basketball is king. We're not just trying to figure out how to raise some money. We're trying to survive
Yeah.
in this era of college athletics and keep great athletes at the university. And Game Change is a way that all of us can do that. Quickly, here's how it works. You go to gogamechange.com, you input your credit or debit card of choice, and then you pick UCLA, right? Your university of choice. And then every single purchase you make with the credit card that you inputted, it is rounded up to the next dollar, and the difference goes directly to the athletic department. And the athletic department disperses that funding how they so choose. It's also a tax write-off, so we all want those at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And you enter yourself for money and prizes of all different types. And so it's a really cool initiative and very easy. Again, just go to gogamechange.com, input your credit or debit card, pick the school of choice, and then every purchase you make with that card rounds directly up and goes right to the athletic department, and you're off and running. It's a great initiative, and I was very curious and inquisitive when they approached me about it. And when I heard about it, I'm like, damn, I wish I thought of this.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of credit. I think
Right.
it's an interesting business model in a space right now that is very bullish. So that's all you do.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. And I'll have the link in the description for this episode. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. Marty, we'll get you out of here with a few more questions. I'm just kind of curious. One of the things I love is turning on ESPN and listening to some of the stories you're telling, let alone the fun that you're having. But sometimes you're telling, such emotional stories or stories with so many different emotional elements. What are some of the stories that have stuck out to you kind of during your time?
Wow. Because of ESPN's reach and the myriad platforms that they afford us, I've been so blessed to do so many, but I'll tell you one that impacted my life forever. So let's go back to 2015, the summer of 2015. We at ESPN got the incredible blessing of broadcasting the Special Olympics World Games for the first time. And we actually had the opening ceremony in the Coliseum.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yep. And so my role in that, we decided as a unit, we're going to broadcast these Special Olympics World Games like the Olympics. We're
Mhm.
going to champion these athletes, and we're going to really dive in and tell their personal stories. Well, my job was to embed myself with the U.S. teams and really learn those stories and share them with the globe. So, first day I'm there, I go into the track stadium at the University of California, Riverside.
Mhm.
And the Special Olympics athletes from the U.S. are training and practicing. And I'm talking to the coach, and the energy in there, James, was palpable. It was buzzing in there because, brother, these are athletes who've been told their whole lives, you can't, you'll never, don't try. Their parents have been told, go ahead and change your expectations for your children. Because when young people are diagnosed, when people, whatever the age, are diagnosed with a neurodivergent condition or an intellectual disability, whether that's something on the autism spectrum or whatnot, that's what their parents are told. And so I'm talking to the coach, and I look over to my left, and there's an athlete seated all alone, stretching on an aluminum bench like you'd find on the sideline at a high school stadium.
Mhm. Right.
My reporter antenna goes up, and I said, hold on a minute, I'm walking over here. So I walk over to that athlete, bald headed. I sit down beside the athlete, kind of put my arm around them and say, what are you doing over here all by yourself? And athlete looks up at me and says, I'm just so tired. And I said, what do you mean you're tired? We just got started. Look at everybody. The energy's beautiful. Let's
Mhm.
go. And the athlete said one word to me, James. The athlete said chemotherapy.
Mm.
Her name was Olivia Quigley. She was 24 years old at the time, adopted from China at
Wow.
3 years old by her parents, Dan and Judy Quigley, in Wisconsin. Olivia had stage 4 breast cancer in that moment. She had undergone a 5-month exhaustive radiation and chemotherapy treatment regimen. And when she was invited to the Special Olympics World Games, she called her oncologist and said, hey, I'm done with this. I'm going to go compete in World Games, and I'm going to show ladies all over the world what they can do while they're battling this disease. So, James, I had lost my mother to breast cancer in 1998. So that was it hit me. And I noticed that Olivia had this way of kind of changing her posture, and her eyes chased mine to make sure I'm listening to her and I'm paying attention to her and that she's seen and that she's heard. And I was really taken by her. And she said to me, "Can you just please tell everybody how happy and joyful I am?" I said, "You got it." So I interviewed her on the opening ceremony in the Coliseum a few days later. She became a global story instantly. Well, fast forward a couple of days, brother. We're at USC, and she lines up for the 100-meter dash, exhausted. Gun goes off. Off the athletes go. Olivia wins the 100-meter dash in the Special Olympics World Games. She collapses at the finish line in exhaustion. Stadium goes bananas. Fast forward a couple more days. She is the anchor leg for the 4x100 gold medal winning U.S. team. So she doesn't just win one, she wins two.
Wow.
End of that year, she is asked to be the keynote speaker at the ESPN. Are you familiar with ESPN? It's the arm of
Yeah.
It's kind of the arm of our company that really champions women's sports.
Right.
And they have this
They do the
banquet at the
summit
end of
and
the year.
whatnot, right?
They do,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked Olivia to be the keynote at the end of the year. So she got to go see the New York City lights for the first time in her life. That was a dream of hers. Well, she and I maintained a close relationship. We would text often, talk on the phone every now and then. She would text me, see me on Sports Center, and say, "Your tie doesn't match. Your hair looks funny." And we built this beautiful friendship. Well, over the next couple years, we continued to correspond. And unfortunately, the cancer spread and ultimately took her from us. It went to her spine, to other organs, ultimately to her brain, and took her from us. Well, I came home from an LSU football game shortly after she passed away. And I opened my mailbox, and in my mailbox, there was a manila envelope, one of those ones with the bubble wrap inside.
Yep.
And I tore open that envelope, and inside there were two things. There was a piece of stationery, and there was a black velvet box. So I opened the stationery, and it was a letter from her mother, Judy. And within that letter, Judy was extremely full of gratitude that ESPN and myself had reported on, embraced, invested in Olivia on a human level, because that's not something she was accustomed to.
Right.
And the way that we reported on her as a human being and as an athlete. She told us that because of that and because of the storytelling that we did on Olivia, it changed their familial dynamic, because after they got home and Olivia won those gold medals and people knew her name and knew her face, she was infused with self-confidence. And so within their home, Olivia was not upset anymore. She felt misunderstood and had anger before the World Games. And she was so full of gratitude that we did that. And at the very end of that letter, there was a PS that said, "Marty, before Olivia passed away, we created something of a last will and testament for her. And she wanted her special friend," which is what she called me, "to have what's in that black velvet box." You want to guess what was in it?
I would like to think it was a medal.
Her 100-meter gold medal
Wow.
from the Special Olympics World Games. And
Love
it sits on my desk right upstairs here in my home in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a daily, tangible reminder for me of the power of kindness. Because, James, we decide that. We decide how kind we're going to be to other people each day. We decide how hard we're willing to work each day. And we decide if we're going to have undeniable positive energy. Those are ours. Nobody else decides that for us. And so, thank you for giving me the platform to share about Olivia. I carry her with me every day.
No worries. First of all, I appreciate you sharing that story, and as someone who lost a parent to cancer as well, I mean, I wish you guys all the
It's
best,
an
and
awful
obviously
disease.
it really is, and whatever we can do to try and beat it, I mean, it's just terrible, but Marty, thank you so much for your time. I could spend a whole hour talking to you about it, and hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up soon. But again, I appreciate you so much, and hopefully the rest of college football season goes well for you. Real quick, what game are you going to be at this week?
That one. I'm at
Okay,
LSU UCLA,
okay,
sir. And in fact,
okay.
on Friday morning, I'll post
Mhm.
this on my social media and it'll be on Sports Center Live. If you're up, I don't know what your sleeping hours are, but if you're up at, let's see, it'll be the 2 o'clock. If you're up at like 11 something your time,
Okay.
turn on Sports Center because I'm actually going to be painting the eye of the tiger at
Wow.
midfield live. So y'all check that out. It should be cool. Hopefully I don't
Uh,
mess it up, bro. There's a
I was
lot of
gonna
pressure,
say,
man.
is there any pressure there?
There's
Yeah,
a lot of
don't mess it
pressure.
up because the rest of the world's gonna see that the rest of the day. Awesome, Marty. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a great one, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.